Hello and welcome back to Particular Pixels. I'm Charling and this is a look at Antigraviator. It's a futuristic anti-gravity racer that joins the ranks of games like Wipeout, Formula Fusion, Redout and other similar titles. The question though is whether or not the game has managed to capture the essence of what makes games like Wipeout great. The answer is yes and no, unfortunately. There are many things that Antigraviator gets right, but unfortunately there are also a number of things which I think really hinder the experience overall. There are 15 tracks in the game, at the moment 30 if you count the reverse variations of each of these tracks. The tracks can be played in quick race, where you choose to play against either up to 3 friends locally, split screen, or 7 AI opponents. There's also a campaign mode in the game which consists of 8 leagues of increasing difficulty, novice through to platinum, each with 4 tracks in them, where you need to place first in one league in order to unlock the next. And finally there's an online multiplayer component in the game as well, where you can casually play up to against 7 friends or ranked via a built-in matchmaking system, which was not without its issues, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. Overall though, the game looks great. It ran flawlessly for me. I never had any frame drops. It never dropped below 144 frames a second on my setup, which was a nice surprise since I've had some quite bad experience with Unity based games. There was one issue that occurred though. If I alt-tabbed out of the game and then back in, the game would not feel quite as smooth despite the frame rate being 144, but a quick restart did fix this issue. I also had one crash during my time with the game, but outside of that I didn't have any other anomalies. I also want to say that I played the game through with a controller. I tested it with a mouse and keyboard as well. Now, although the keyboard did work and the game can be played with the keyboard without too much of an issue, playing with the controller was by far a superior experience, as would be expected with this type of game. Each track can be played in a variety of different modes: single, which is your traditional lapped race; countdown, which is a time-based race mode where a timer ticks down and going through checkpoints adds more time, and you want to try and place in the highest position before the time runs out. And then there's death race, which is essentially an elimination mode, so the racer who is in last position each lap will be eliminated, along with racers that get destroyed by the traps. The goal is to be the last man standing essentially when it reaches the end of the 8th lap. Each track has booster pads scattered around that when driven over will increase your speed. There are numerous energy pickups as well scattered across the tracks that can be collected that will fill up a meter. When the meter has had enough charge, you can opt to use it to nitro boost your grav to gain a little bit more speed, or you can use it to trigger the various traps that are located on each track. Now, if any of you have played a game by the name of Split Second, you'll be familiar with this type of mechanic. Basically, there are various locations on each track where traps are, and when you get in within range of these areas, you have the option of triggering these traps to hinder the other racers on the track. The traps vary depending on which tracks you are currently racing on, but they come in a variety of different forms, from missile barrages, falling crates, falling rocks, blinding gas, energy walls, etc. Some of these will stop you dead in your tracks, and others will slow you down, and others will hinder your visibility, making it really hard to see where you're going. If you do take too much damage from a particular trap, your grav will be destroyed. You'll have to respawn, unless of course you're in a death race mode, then that'll basically be the end of your race for that particular track. In addition to the ones listed above, there's also a trap that allows you to fire a single missile at the opponent in front of you to slow them down. The track mechanic, although it may sound good on paper, actually ends up, I think, hurting the game in quite a significant way by constantly interrupting the flow of the race. You can roll left and right with your grav to avoid obstacles or ram other racers who are trying to overtake you. The issue here is though the placement of some of the traps is just plain bad. For example, dropping physics-based box obstacles just over the apex of a hill, or just out of sight around a sharp corner, make it next to impossible to actually see them before it's too late, which in turn makes the roll kind of redundant, because even if you were trying to roll, you don't have time to react to the obstacles. And crashing into these will stop you dead in your tracks and will likely cost you the race as you watch all of the other racers drive right past you. The player needs enough time to see and react to these obstacles. Avoiding obstacles should be a skill-based thing and not a luck-based thing. This is not the case with all of the traps in the game obviously, but there are quite a few that do fall into this particular category. Also, when you're in first place, you'll constantly have missiles fired at you from the racers that are behind you. But it always happens at the same places on the same tracks, and it gets a little bit tiresome after a while. The missiles are avoidable, but they will require you to use 3 nitro boosts or 1 nitro boost and 2 pads or any combination of the two in order to get away. If you've run out of energy, you are just going to have to buckle up and get ready to be rammed by a missile and hope that you don't lose your position. The inclusion of the trap mechanic does seem very odd to me indeed. It ruins what I think would otherwise be a reasonably enjoyable high-speed racing experience. In fact, there were enough players complaining about the inclusion of the traps that the developers have said that they're going to be adding a pure mode into the game where the traps are going to be disabled. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a checkbox feature that disables it for the entire game, or if it's going to be a separate mode that you are going to have to play. I do hope that it's going to be a checkbox that you can tick so you can play through the campaign without having to worry about these traps, but we are just going to have to wait and see. There's also a simple upgrade system in the game as well. Currently there are 3 gravs available in the game. You start with 1 unlocked, and then each of the gravs also have 4 parts that can be upgraded, and each part has 3 different options that you can choose. These add basically more acceleration, better handling, larger energy storage, or better shields, for example. So depending on the racing style that you have, you can somewhat customize your grav to your preferences. However, all of this costs credits, and you get credits by entering the various leagues in the game. The first league is free to enter, and winning it nets you about 8,000 credits and unlocks the next league. Each successive league costs more to enter, basically it doubles each time, but the monetary reward is higher as well, but the league also increases in difficulty. If you don't place in the top 3, you basically get nothing. So for example, entering bronze will cost you 16,000, and if you want to get the reward of 64,000, you have to win. On average, it'll take you about 15 minutes to finish all the races of a particular league. The difficulty of the game does ramp up quite suddenly when you hit Silver League and can actually feel somewhat erratic at times. And it won't be long until you realize that you basically need a better grav. In fact, you need a better fully upgraded grav in order to even stand a chance of placing in the top 3. Each upgrade costs between 5 to 20,000 for the starter grav. However, once you purchase the second grav, the upgrade cost ranges from 150 to 200,000 credits. And it's at this point that you really do start to feel the grind set in, as you're not fast enough to compete in the higher level league with your current grav, so you end up having to grind the lower leagues over and over and over to get enough credits to upgrade your grav so that you can compete at the higher leagues and get more monetary reward. So here is an example. You pay the entry fee of 16,000 to enter Bronze League in the hope of winning 64,000, which is actually only 48,000 profit. And that's if you come first. So you'll need to spend that over and over and over until you manage to save up 200,000 to buy your first upgrade for the second grav. Then of course you have 3 other parts that you have to upgrade, so repeat that another 3 times. And this is before we even start looking at the decal customization, which can cost anywhere from 10,000 to 200,000 credits each. Once you've got your upgrades, you probably won't even have 16,000 or 32,000 to enter the Bronze or Silver League again, so you'll be back to the free league where you can win 8,000 just so that you can enter the Novice League and repeat that whole cycle all over again. The point is that you'll spend an inordinate amount of time grinding the lower leagues in order to save up credits to upgrade your grav. And the issue with that is that playing the same leagues over and over to farm credits is just not particularly entertaining, because I don't think that the racing gameplay is deep enough to warrant that kind of replayability, especially since the campaign doesn't feel like a real career mode. And this is before we even consider that the final grav costs 500,000 credits, and that's not even taking into account all the upgrades that we have to buy for it. In my 12 hours of playing the game, I reached Silver League with a fully upgraded second grav. I can win or at least place in the top 3 in the first 3 races, but come the 4th race, I'm having issues even placing in the top 6. It's as if the AI suddenly jumps up 2 notches in the last track, and that is somewhat annoying. The moment you finish the 4 races in any league, it takes you back to the main menu of all places and gives you your monetary reward. And if you want to play another league, you basically have to go into campaign and then you choose the other league again. So this gives a sense that there's no cohesiveness to the campaign, and as a direct result it feels kind of disjointed. It feels extremely bare bones and somewhat disappointing. There's also no way to customize the build of your grav between tracks during league, so you're forced to play with the setup that you have for the entirety of the league that you enter with. And all of this basically makes the campaign somewhat less enjoyable than it should have been. There are a few other issues that I'd also like to mention as well. The game only offers 1 camera view, so if you are hoping for a cockpit view or the ability to at least choose a different camera angle, you're out of luck. which is kind of an oversight in a gravity racer game. However, the devs have stated that they are going to be adding more camera options in the future. They did say there won't be a cockpit mode, but there is going to be a bumper cam. So hopefully that doesn't take too long before we see that. The music in the game is average at best. It unfortunately just didn't stand out very much and grew kind of repetitive as well. And I found myself turning it off and just listening to other music basically while I was playing the game. But even though Antigraviator does manage to create a great sense of speed, the gravs themselves also didn't feel like they had much weight to them. It felt like I was controlling sort of paper planes, if you will. They felt incredibly light. So in conclusion, I would say that the game overall feels just a little bit shallow. The controls are not as technical as something like Redout, and as a direct result they feel a little bit less rewarding because there's less to master. The campaign also doesn't actually feel like a campaign, as I said earlier, but rather a bunch of separate groups of racers joined together by a menu screen. The upgrade options for each grav is pretty sparse, and there are only 3 gravs to choose from, so that's not a whole lot of variety happening here. Combine this with the trap system that really detracts from the flow of the game, and a quite extensive grind in order to progress in the campaign, it just makes the overall experience feel very repetitive and somewhat boring after a while. Add to this the fact that I was unable to find a single multiplayer match at all online, which is a serious cause for concern for the longevity of the title. Perhaps it's because of my location, but really this shouldn't be an issue at all. Now that's not to say that Antigraviator is a bad game, it's not. It's an impressive accomplishment for a team of 5 indie developers, but it is marred by some odd design decisions and it just doesn't stand out from the crowd. It's just average. And I can't wholeheartedly recommend this to you guys at full price. I think if you do want to pick it up because you need to play every anti-gravity game there is, wait for a special. I think for this price point there are far better anti-gravity racers out there that have more to offer you guys. Anyways, that's been a look at Antigraviator. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. As usual, if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to click the bell icon if you want reminders of when I do release new content. Otherwise, I think that pretty much wraps it up. I've been Xiaoling, and I'll see you guys next time.